Thank you so much, Dominique Daoust, for being with us today. So excited to talk about cozy mysteries and your journey in writing them. So, can you tell us about your journey into writing magical cozy mysteries?
So basically, I've always been a reader. I feel like I only really got into cozies in 2020 because everything got very intense. So I wanted like a palate cleanser in between all the true crime and horror books I was reading. And I kind of stumbled upon them. And I really enjoyed the mystery aspect with the lightheartedness of the cozy setting of the towns and the side characters. And I started writing a bit on Wattpad. I don't know why I really hadn't decided to write earlier. I have a journalism degree, but I haven't really used it, to be fair. So I decided to get the creative juices flowing, and then I realized maybe I should try, writing my own series and selling them myself, not via like a platform like Wattpad. So then I got my first series I started to write. It's the Deadly Exclusives trilogy, and it's set in Montreal. And I wrote those back to back and released them all together in 2022. And that's kind of how I started going. And I kind of brainstormed my new series, Silver Screen Coven, as well.
Very cool. And I love that series. I think I just got the arc for book 3 or 4. Are we on 4? I'm really excited. I'm kind of holding off a little bit to get into that fall spirit. So, what inspired you to blend the elements of cozy mysteries with supernatural themes?
I do watch a lot of content that has supernatural undertones, and even when I was a teenager, I loved Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the 90s version mostly, and also Charmed. I am still very obsessed with the 90s show Charmed. I wanted to be a Hollywell sister, and I really enjoyed that it's supernatural elements but in a human world. So they're kind of hiding the fact that they're witches and other, supernatural beings. And for my first series, Deadly Exclusives, she can see ghosts, so it's partially supernatural. But for the Silver Screen Coven series, it's historical, but I did want to incorporate witches somehow. I felt it in my bones that it was definitely a series I had to write that was a mix of historical and witchy, and it was always a given for me that I'd write a series like that.
Very cool. So how do you approach world building in your series and make it believable?
So I spend a lot of time brainstorming and prepping. I have to dedicate a few chunks of hours just sat with a notebook and a pen and just thinking of what I want to incorporate. But it all comes out a little jumbled at first. So you kind of just write it all down, take some time away, come back and um, piece it all together. I'm a big planner, so I do plan out all my chapters in advance, like the main points, not like full, dialogue and all that. And I want to make sure the little clues for the mysteries and all that makes sense with the flow of the story. So I do spend a lot of time doing that. So when it comes time to writing, it's a lot easier when you get to sit down and write chapter per chapter. So I guess it's not as intense with the world building as like a fantasy novel, but I do want to make sure the kind of human elements of the cozy blends with the supernatural witchy side of it as well.
And I know in your Silver Screen Coven series, it takes place in 1920s,
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 1930s,
1920s,
jazz age.
1930s, um, LA and
Yes,
Hollywood. And
yes.
so why there? Why that time?
So basically, I had two obsessions when I was a teenager. It was witches, and I became obsessed with old Hollywood. I started watching all of Marilyn Monroe's movies. So basically, I kind of started with the 1950s era, and then I kind of got the TCM Turner Classic Movies channel and became obsessed with the decades prior. And I still have too many movies recorded on my TV, like over 100. I don't know if I'm ever gonna manage to watch them all. And I love the era, like the music, the bars, the clothes, the slang. Obviously, the slang is so fun to incorporate. So when I was thinking of a historical era I would love to veer towards for this series. It was a no-brainer that the 30s would be it, and MGM Studios, like the studio system, was so it had a monopoly on the movie industry, and I was like, I have to set it at the studio. I could do so much with this and really branch off and make it super fun. So it was fun. It's fun for me to write, and I hope it translates to the readers as well.
I think it definitely does. That is, sort of like the beginning of Hollywood as we know
Yeah.
it. And it was run so differently, I think, than it is today. I actually, in reading your series, I kind of started, I knew a little bit about the history of Hollywood and how it started, and I've watched movies and documentaries and things like that. Um, but I kind of like went back to refresh my brain a little bit,
Mhm.
and it's a very interesting history. So it's fun to sort of see it incorporated
Mhm.
um, within your stories, within your
Yeah.
series. So what advice would you give to aspiring authors who are interested in writing specifically magical cozy mysteries?
I mean, first off, it's such a fun genre, and authors do it in so many different ways. Like it could be a world within itself that's separate from the human world. It could be in a community where there's a bunch of supernatural beings. So really don't limit yourself to necessarily what you read. Like you can make your own spin on it. I think that's what's important. Like I realize tropes are important for cozy mysteries and to attract readers, but you can really branch out and do what you want with it. So don't restrain yourself to fit in a box of what is out there already. Kind of do what your gut is telling you to do and make it fun.
Yeah, magic cozy mysteries are probably one of my favorite types. As you have a little bit more leeway in worlds and
Yes.
character dynamics and the magic side of things, and it's really fun to read. So we're going to switch gears a little bit with the questions. Uh, so the next question is, what is your definition of magic?
That is a very interesting question. I mean, other than the go-to would be like, witches and like magic in that sense, but it could be I can interpret that in a lot of different ways. I mean, it could be just the inspiration that strikes you while you're writing and it feels like you're in the flow into a bit of magic, with your writing. Or it could be, for me, often I was just on a trip out to Newfoundland on the east coast of Canada, and just like nature itself, I find can be very magical when you look out at it. So that's the first thing that comes to mind with that question, is just the magic of Mother Nature and what's around us, and to open our eyes and see it.
And if you could have a magical power or ability, what would it be and why?
There are two things, and they kind of go together, but the no brainer answer would be to time travel. Obviously, I'd love to be able to go back to the 1930s at MGM Studios and like walk around there and see what's going on and how different it is from now. And also, if I could astral project and travel that way instead of having to take a train or a plane or a long car ride, I feel like that would be very fun.
That seems to be a favorite amongst a lot of us, time travel.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite way to get cozy with a book?
I like quiet, so I need a quiet space. I don't like hearing other sounds. It's often just like in my bed or in the living room with a blanket and my Kobo, which is funny because a few years ago I felt like I was very resistant to the idea of having an e-reader, but I think the book talk community opened my eyes to the convenience of it. So my Kobo is always with me, and I always have a tea or a beverage, and that's pretty much the setup. And I'm noticing this thing lately where you can buy like an e-reader holder and you clamp it to like a table, and then you get a separate thing that it's like a page flip thing. So that seems like the ultimate cozy setup, and I'm really debating getting that at some point.
I've seen that setup too, and I've seen it used. I mean, I've seen it used sort of when you're like up in your bed or
Uh,
lying down on a couch. But I've seen people, or I've seen videos on Book Talk and on Instagram where they're using it on a plane.
the only problem I have is that I wear glasses, so I can't really lie on my side. But
Mhm.
I don't have that instinct to lie on my side if I'm reading anyways, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, if I'm in, by the time I'm in bed, I'm ready to sleep. So I think I'm going to read, and then I never actually
Yeah.
do. So, what are you reading right now? And do you have any book recommendations for our listeners?
So I was just back from a trip and I'm about to start. This isn't like a cozy, but The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, which is like a gothic horror ghost story. So I'm about to start that on Audible. And in terms of cozies, I've been very obsessed with Orly Wallace's Evanfall B&B series. I read the first one, it made me cry. I did not think a cozy was going to make me cry. And I'm purposely keeping the second one for the fall, like October. And I don't think there's more, which sucks, but I think she's supposed to write another series that's witch adjacent. So that's like the big one that I'm really excited about. And I obviously have a bunch of other series on the go, some of like London Lovett and Jana De Leon and Vivian Chen. So I have a lot of series on the go, and I got to keep track of where I'm at, or else I get a bit overwhelmed.
And do you have any new projects that you'd like to share or promote?
So, book 4 of the Silver Screen Coven series, Mischief Nightmares, is coming out October 1st, and it's set around Halloween time. MGM is having a big Halloween bash, and obviously things go wrong, and they have to close the gates and try to solve the mystery before the sun comes up. So, if you're like me, already excited for a spooky season, you can pre-order it now on Amazon, and I can't wait for people to read it and enjoy the spooky vibes.
I cannot wait to read it either. I'm really excited. And how can our listeners find you?
I have a website. It's dominiquedaoustauthor.com. I also have a Facebook page of the same name, and I'm on TikTok, where I'm still trying to understand that platform. It's a little strange to me as a in terms of posting, but it's fun to use anyways. And I'm also on Instagram at dominic.dau. So I'm a little bit everywhere, and I post about my cat and dog a lot because I think they're very cute.
It's great. We love the pet sidekicks, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for being on the Magic of Cozies podcast this afternoon. And hopefully we'll talk soon on Instagram.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.